Welcome to the Business Interview. I'm Markus Karlsson. The race for the White House is entering the home stretch. Incumbent Barack Obama and his Republican challenger Mitt Romney, they're seen to be neck and neck. In this program, we're taking a look at the U.S. campaign from an entrepreneur's perspective. And for that, I'm joined by a man who's been billed as a serial entrepreneur. Stephen Coltai is chief executive of Coltai & Company, which provides advice to growth companies as well as investors. He also designed and led the U.S. State Department's Global Entrepreneurship Program, and he still works as an advisor to the State Department. Thanks very much indeed, Stephen, for being with us.
My pleasure.
Now, you've worn many hats during your career: investment banker, business executive, and you've also been a part of government, as I said before. How would you qualify, though, the health of small business in the U.S., if we turn to that sector first of all?
Well, I think I would characterize it as fragile and slowly recovering. I think we've come through a very, very difficult time, but I do see very much light at the end of the tunnel.
If we talk about that slow recovery you just referred to, we've just been getting out the latest unemployment figures for the month of October from the Labour Department. Unemployment actually ticked up from 7.8% in September to 7.9% in October. What do those figures tell us about the state of the wider economy in your view?
Well, to be honest, I don't think that the 1/10 of a point change is terribly material one way or the other. I mean, I think we clearly have a persistent continuing unemployment rate that's around 8%, which is what it's been. And frankly, it's what it's been since the beginning of this administration. To me, the issue is looking at a broader range of economic indicators than just unemployment in order to get a sense of the total economy. And particularly when you look at issues that are of particular interest to entrepreneurs and small business and business creation, there are many other factors besides the unemployment rate that are important.
When it comes to the unemployment rate, though, I've been reading that between 1980 and 2005, upstart companies stood for nearly all net job growth in the United States. That's an astounding bit of information if you really think about it. Do you think then that small businesses in the United States, are they ready to start hiring again properly?
Well, I mean, there's no question that entrepreneurs and small business are the engines of job creation, and that's true in the United States, and it's true all over the world. It has been, you know, the only change has it been 100% of jobs or has it been 80% of jobs? But it has always been the lion's share of job creation. So things which affect small business and entrepreneurs and enterprise creation are absolutely central to the job recovery. Now, I think the administration recognizes that. They started this program, Startup America, which was frankly modeled very much on the program that I had been created at the State Department, which was the Global Entrepreneurship Program, which you referred to, which was about helping to create jobs in emerging markets around the world, particularly in the Muslim world. But the principles of job creation, whether you're in France or whether you're in the United States or whether you're in Morocco or whether you're in Chile, are basically the same, and that is an emphasis on small business and entrepreneurs to be able to have the breathing room to create and grow new companies.
As a former part of the Obama administration, do you think that Barack Obama is the best man for small business in the United States?
Well, clearly, I mean, I'm not objective. You know, as you say, I was a member of this administration and support the president wholeheartedly. I do feel that the economy as a whole is so complex at this point that we often overemphasize the power of the president to really affect that. For instance, much of the regulation that either inhibits or facilitates enterprise creation is really congressional and driven by Congress, and in many cases by state legislatures. But Congress, as you know, has been in a state of gridlock since the midterm elections almost 2 years ago, and that has caused enormous pain throughout the economy, including for entrepreneurs and small business.
I want to get back to the Congress in a little bit, but first I want to ask you about the political affiliation of small business owners. Why do you think that most surveys tend to put them in Mitt Romney's camp?
Well, I think, you know, there's a general perception, and this is not specific to Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, but there's a general perception, you know, that Republicans are good for business and Democrats are not so good for business. In fact, I think if you looked at figures in both Republican and Democratic administrations over the last 50 years, you'd have a lot of reason to question that commonly held view. Clearly, in my business lifetime, the very best years were the Clinton years, which were obviously a Democratic presidency. So I think that you need to be careful about overgeneralizing the view of entrepreneurs and small business. I think you will find people in both camps.
But Mitt Romney, he wants to bring down tax rates for entrepreneurs, though. For instance, the maximum corporate federal tax rate. Isn't that a good thing for small businesses? Isn't that something that Barack Obama and his political program is lacking?
I would venture to say that for most entrepreneurs, corporate tax rate is not problem number 1, 2, or 3. For most entrepreneurs, bigger issues are consumer demand and the health of the overall economy, and probably ahead of their own tax rate, it is the ease of access to capital, both investment capital, which is generally speaking a function of financial tax rates, capital gains rates, and other taxes that promote early stage investment, and of course liquidity within the banking system, which, as we well know, has been sorely lacking in this recovery. So I think corporate taxes are lower down on the list of priorities for entrepreneurs and small business.
Let's get back then to Congress. There's much chatter, much talk about the so-called Fiscal Cliff, which is a number of automatic spending cuts as well as tax hikes that will come into effect at the end of this year or the start of 2013, unless Democrats and Republicans come to some sort of other compromise in Congress. What kind of danger do you think that the fiscal cliff poses?
Well, I think it's enormously dangerous, and certainly it's the buzz in the business community, both small business and I think bigger business. Although I know more about small business, but I think we are all very, very concerned and very afraid of what might happen if this fiscal cliff and the problems associated with it are not avoided. Now, the good news is that both parties recognize that given the fragility of the economy, being thrown back into recession is a very real possibility if we don't do something. So I think both parties recognize that there needs to be a change. But frankly, from a business perspective, unless the White House and Congress are able to agree on something, I mean, it seems like they can't even agree on what to order for lunch these days. So unless that changes, I am very worried about what's going to happen after January 1st.
I was going to say that the debate in the past few months and even years, it's been so vitriolic, hasn't it? You're saying that there is a real risk that this fiscal cliff will actually happen.
You bet. I think it's a real risk, and frankly, I think it's something that right after the election, everybody is going to be talking about a lot more.
Now, let's look at Europe, because Europe is also seen as a major issue in the global economy at this stage. Do you think that small entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in the United States, do they care about the Eurozone and its woes at this stage?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, and it obviously depends on what kinds of businesses you are in. In the tech sector, The market is almost instantly global. There are very, very few things, if you look at e-commerce, if you look at mobile apps, most aspects of technology very quickly become global. So the health of the global economy is of earlier interest to even small entrepreneurs than was the case before. Now, of course, having said that, the United States is an enormous market in and of itself. You can build incredible businesses very locally here. You don't have to go abroad. So U.S. demand and the health of the U.S. economy is clearly by far and away the most important issue for entrepreneurs and small business. Having said that, it is unlikely that the United States can continue to grow and pull out of the deep hole that we were in, that most of us remember when the Bush administration left office, if the rest of the world is not similarly recovering. So we are very worried about Europe. We're very worried about the future of the euro. And frankly, we're also very worried about the sputtering economies in the BRICS. China and India are both looking a lot weaker than they were 6 months ago, and that's also a concern.
Now, I want to end a little on a hopeful note, I suppose we can call it that. You've already referred to it a little bit there in your last response, but I was wondering where you see strength when it comes to small businesses in the US economy. What sectors are emerging as powerhouses when we are talking about small businesses?
Oh, I think there's enormous optimism, and I agree with you. I mean, my overall view right now is sort of trending optimistic. I think consumer demand is coming back. There's a huge amount of small business that's related to housing and the supply around the housing market. We've seen some extremely encouraging numbers around recovery in the housing market, which is important.
All right, Stephen Coltai, it has been a pleasure to speak to you today. Thanks very much indeed for being on the business interview here on France 24. That was Stephen Coltai once again there from Washington, D.C. And with that, we're going to wrap up the program. You have my Twitter address or Twitter handle right there at the bottom of your screen, Markus F24, if you want to get in touch. Thanks very much indeed for watching France 24.